Module 1.1, we're going to talk about your paycheck and where the money goes. You might ask yourself, when am I ever going to use this? Maybe you think that a lot about things you learn at school. Well, we believe you should be asking yourself, when will you not need to use this? Every paycheck counts. It's your money, and managing it wisely is just as important as earning new money. Every dollar you save is a dollar earned. So understand where your paycheck comes from. First of all, what percent of Americans live paycheck to paycheck? In other words, they have no money left in their wallet at the end of a pay period. They need the next paycheck just to sustain themselves, just to pay for food, just to pay the rent. What percent of all Americans live this way? Well, in the middle of 2013, it was 76% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. They're all out of money by the time they need their next paycheck. They're not saving at all. They're not building up a cushion at all. So this is kind of scary. We'd like it if fewer people were in that situation. So when are you ever going to use this knowledge? Well, every 2 weeks of your working life. Most people are going to have to work for a living, and most paychecks come every 2 weeks. So we're going to take a look at your paycheck and figure out how to make every dollar count. Here's a simple sample paycheck for John Doe, who lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Looks like he makes $9 an hour, and for this pay period, he earned 50 hours of work. So first, we're going to talk about his gross pay, which is on this side of the pay stub. Down here is his actual paycheck. Over here are his deductions. Okay, so we're going to find that gross pay minus deductions equals his net pay here. First of all, gross pay is your total money earned, right? It's going to be, for most hourly workers, it's going to be an hourly wage, $9 an hour times 50 hours, so you get $450 here. Notice this is not per week. This is every 2 weeks because it's a 2-week pay period, and that's how most payroll works. Most workers get a check every 2 weeks. Some are monthly, but most of them are like this. Your pay or your gross pay can occasionally include overtime if you work more than 8 hours a day in most states, or if you work more than 40 hours a week in some areas. You can also earn commissions. Like if you're a salesperson, you get paid on commission when you make a big sale. And in the private sector, a lot of people will pay bonuses for a job well done, or just a Christmas bonus because the company was doing well. This is all part of your gross pay, but for most young people, gross pay is just going to be hourly wage times hours you worked during that pay period. Now keep in mind, we're not talking about benefits here, but they're a huge part of your total compensation package. And if you get a career job, not just an hourly wage job, benefits can be very, very worthwhile. Healthcare, dental care, retirement package, and sometimes even life insurance or other benefits can come as part of your compensation. It's not considered gross pay, but it is certainly worthy of your consideration when you're considering a job offer. Over here, you want to understand this is just for this pay period. That's his gross pay, $50. 50 hours times $9 an hour gives him $450. Year to date is what YTD stands for, and this means that, oh, $450 this period, he must have worked one other period of $450. So that means he's only been working probably 2 pay periods. So understand what those acronyms mean. YTD is year to date. Understand how to get this number of $450, right? 50 hours times $9 an hour. Most paychecks that young people collect are going to look just like that. Now here's the deductions. Normally there's taxes taken out, but this one's kind of simple because maybe he doesn't need to pay taxes. He's making too little money to be taxed here from the federal government, that's our national government, or from Wisconsin state income tax. He lives in Wisconsin. California does have state income tax. Some states don't, but California does, so you'll see numbers here if you make enough money. Now, FICA Medicare, this is money that gets set aside that goes into a fund where he can have some of his medical costs paid for when he's in his 60s. At least that's what the age is right now. As far as FICA Social Security, this is money that goes into a retirement fund that he can tap into when he gets to be a retirement age, also in his 60s. Notice that these two numbers add up to $32. So his net pay is $450 minus 32 equals $418 here on his pay stub and here on the paycheck, and that's very important you know how that's calculated. Okay? These deductions don't usually make people happy, but that's why we're covering it. You've got to understand where they come from, what they go to, and how they do benefit you, assuming you'll collect Medicare and Social Security someday. Okay? We'll look at a more complicated paycheck in a minute that does have federal and state income tax. Okay, so how are these deductions determined? Social Security, like I said, goes towards a retirement fund for most Americans. When you get to be a certain age, 62 or 65, depends on what the laws are when you get there, you'll get to take some of that money out, okay, to help fund your retirement. So these are already determined. Social Security is about 6.2% of your gross pay. You only pay it up to a certain dollar amount, and then you don't pay it anymore. So it's pretty significant, though. Most people will pay 6.2% on every dollar they earn. Medicare is 1.5% of every dollar you earn, and that's where those deductions came from. For federal and state income taxes, our example a moment ago didn't have any, but you get to decide how much is taken out. The way it works is, if you take out too little, you might owe tax money to the federal government at the end of the year, and you better have that money ready because they're going to get it. If you can't pay it, there's consequences. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so federal and state taxes, you do get to decide based on what you put on a W-4 form. You should be given a W-4 form before you start your new job, and this determines how much money is taken from your paycheck. You'll list your information here. You'll claim a total number of allowances. If it's just you, it's usually one. If you have a family and children, you can claim more. And there are other exemptions, but they give you a worksheet that helps you determine the number of allowances. The more allowances you claim, the less money is deducted from your paycheck. Hey, that sounds good. The fewer allowances you claim, the more money is taken out. But you've got to be careful because some people might think, well, why don't I just claim plenty of allowances and have no money taken out? Some people do that, but if you make enough money to be taxed by the federal government and the state government at the end of the year, you might owe taxes at the end of the year. And very few people set aside money to pay a tax bill that they didn't expect come April 15th. That's when taxes are due from the previous year. So if you take out too little, you may owe the government. If you can't pay your taxes, and there's usually fines and penalties, then there's even jail time if you don't pay. If you don't think that it can happen to you, one of the most notorious gangsters of the 20th century, Al Capone, the feds never busted him on some of the crimes related to his gangster activity. They busted him on income tax evasion. He didn't pay his federal income taxes. So they sent him to Alcatraz. That's that prison out in San Francisco Bay. It's closed now, but Al Capone ended up dying in prison based on not paying federal income tax and not for being a gangster and a murderer and a criminal. So don't worry about being thrown in prison, but do get it right. Okay, get it right your first day of work or before your first day of work. If you're not sure what to put on your W-4, read the worksheet provided with it. Check with your parents or financial advisor. Make sure you get the right number of allowances because you'd rather not owe taxes at the end of the year. And if you take out a little bit too much, guess what? You get a refund when you do your taxes at the end of the calendar year. So if they take out too much, you'll get some of that money back. Okay? If you pay too little, though, you owe money. All right, let's look at another paycheck here. Here is Jane Harper. Looks like she lives in New York City, as you can tell by her pay stub here. And they call this an earnings statement. The bottom part's a check that she would just detach and drop in the Versateller, except that she would first look at her deductions, we hope. So let's zoom in. Let's take a closer look. First of all, what hourly rate is she paid? 10 bucks an hour, 32 hours. So her gross pay for that line item is 320 bucks. Looks like she worked 1 hour of overtime. Notice the overtime is 1.5 times her hourly rate for regular hours. So 1.5 is 15 bucks an hour. It's like she got a 50% raise just for those hours that she works overtime. So 1 times 15 is 15, and these numbers all add up here. Looks like they gave her 8 hours of holiday pay. There must have been a holiday during this pay period, and so she gets that built in there too. So $37.43 looks like it was reimbursed. She had some tuition costs, and so these four numbers add up to $452.43. This is her gross pay. All right, she worked 1 hour of overtime, and that's that. Notice over here, her year-to-date numbers are significantly higher. They can never be lower than this. Even if this is the first pay period of the year, then it would say 320 over here. But they'll never be lower than this, and they're almost always higher. She's made almost $24,000 this year. Okay, working away at $450 per pay period. Looking at her deductions, she took out 45 bucks federal income tax. The quick math would say, oh, it's about 10%. I don't know if that's too much or too little for her, but she'll find out at the end of the year. Social Security tax. Notice it doesn't say FICA here, besides Social Security and Medicare. Some employers write things differently. You've got to understand what each line item means, even though the words may be slightly different on different paychecks. Social Security tax is about 30 bucks. Looks like that's about 6% of this number, like we said. Medicare, about 1.5% of that gross pay number. That's her Medicare cost, okay? New York State does have income tax. So in addition to the federal tax deducted, New York State takes $17. New York City even has a municipal income tax. That means the city charges their own tax. Most cities don't do that. This is very rare. New York City is a big city, but you should see federal income tax and state income tax on your paychecks in California. Some states don't have state income tax, but that's rare and that's outside of California, so we'll talk about that later. Notice down here this last one, 60 cents. It's a small amount, but it stands for SUI and SDI, state unemployment insurance and state disability insurance. This money goes into a fund, so if she loses her job, she can collect some unemployment checks to help her find another job and get some pay while she's doing that. Disability insurance is if somebody gets injured, you can collect some money when you're injured and unable to work, and that money gets put into a fund right here by workers and employers putting money in. Notice down here she deducted $5 for being part of a union. These union dues go to the union, and those folks help negotiate better salaries and better working conditions for the members of the union. Down here it says some important deductions here. She has taken out 15 bucks for a stock plan. Looks like she's investing in the company's stock, which is a good move. Life insurance, she set aside $5 for a life insurance policy. It looks like she's either taking out a loan or paying back a loan. And so all of these deductions, add up all these negative numbers, they don't show the total, but 452.43 minus all these numbers should give her her net pay down here of 273.85. Notice the company kicked in an adjustment for life insurance. That was a plus, so they're covering some of the life insurance for her. Okay. The big one I want to talk about is this 401k plan, though. She has set aside about $29 for her retirement plan. What's great about this is employers often will match dollars for your retirement plan, and it's free money. It really is free money. If your employer will match what you put in, you should put in as much as you can possibly afford. And what's great about the 401k plan is it stays attached to her name. It travels with her if she changes jobs. And again, it can accumulate interest without taxes. She won't pay taxes on that until she's of retirement age. And at that age, most people are in a much lower tax bracket. So it's a great plan, great way to set aside for retirement. And it's strongly encouraged. It's considered very good financial planning. So what do we learn here? Pay attention. Know where your money is and where it goes. Have a plan. We're going to talk about the next module. Know how much money you need to spend and how to save money by not wasting it. If you can set aside money and build up a safety cushion, that'll help you weather the storm should you come across any financial hardships. And finally, pay yourself first. Put some money aside for retirement. Watch it grow over time. It'll grow much faster and much higher than a lot of people think. So set aside money for retirement early, and that's one great way to start your financial future now. At this time, please go on to the next module, next item in module 1.1. We hope you've enjoyed this one, but try the next one now. Thank you.